Hey, this is Tony Alcino versus Adonis. This is the TVT, and it's only 15 minutes long, so we're going to see. My guess, anytime a game ends relatively prematurely in TVT, it's going to be either a tank push up the middle or like a doom drop in the back, because all the other strategies are geared around getting an advantage and then slowly pressing that advantage forever. But tank pushes and doom drops can actually kill you. So he's going to harass you, and this is when you should have pulled this guy off and finished the racks. You're really getting flustered by this SCV harass. Remember, you can't kill an enemy worker. You just want to chase it with one guy, because if you have one guy chasing it, he can never harass you, because as soon as he stops to harass, your guy's going to hit him. So he's always going to take just as much damage as he does, and therefore he can never kill anything. So, yeah, to deal with worker harass, you want to have two guys pre-hotkeyed and just send them both up here. Take the guy that he's already been harassing and send him home to mine. Have one guy attack the worker, the other guy finishes the racks, and then you're all set. You're getting kind of silly. Like, why'd you make the second depot if you're going to cut Marines? I don't understand. Either make constant Marine production or don't make the second depot, because it delays your command center. You're spending $150 worth of the $100 depot and the $50 of time not mining on completing that depot, and that's, you know, delaying your CC. So you need to use it. You need to use that depot. Anyway, that's not a big enough deal for me to explain further, but hopefully that makes sense. At 6 minutes, you've only got 19 workers. This is all about the worker harass. You cut 5 workers. You completely gimped yourself just on that worker harass. So I know you feel like you lost this game because you didn't get enough tanks or whatever you said in the replay description, but you're just so far behind right now already. Without having done anything, you just put yourself behind by missing 5 workers out of 24. That's like more than 25% of your economy that's just gone. So you're just making Marines, unupgraded Marines. You're getting stim. You're getting it looks like a starport. You're gonna get a reactor for your starport, but you're not gonna have anywhere near enough gas to use a reactored starport at this point, because you're doing upgrades, and infrastructure. Here we go. Ooh, the third gas. I'm glad that you noticed that you needed that. This is I thumbs down this map, not because of TVT, but because of TVP. But this is something that you can that always sucks. A map where your opponent can siege up your natural without having the high ground disadvantage. So when this type of thing is possible on a map like on this map, you gotta be aware of it and just make sure you catch him before he gets to you. Because if you just sit back in your base and let him get a siege position in a place where you can't get past it and he doesn't have the vision disadvantage, you're kind of doomed, man. There's nothing you can do from there, because infantry can't just walk into pre-siege tanks. So you have a much bigger army than him, a much bigger economy than him, much higher tech than him. You're kind of way ahead of him, even though you had that terrible opening, just because he's terrible too. Again, a lot of your games, I'm always expecting you to get punished for the mistakes you make, but it turns out that your opponent sucks too. So right now you're basically going for just stim and medevacs with Marines and Marauders. It looks like you're starting to add tanks now, but of course there's no, like, you're not going to have the gas off of 3 geysers to make tanks and medevacs and upgrades. So here he comes with another tank push. He's got the vision of these medevacs, and he's going to kind of slowly push you back into your base. And at this point you're really wishing that you you got siege mode. You're wishing that you'd made a tank, and you're going to try to doom drop to punish him for coming to your base, but this is the wrong move, because now he can secure this chokehold that basically wins the game. Anytime you can get a tank whose siege range is just at the edge of the ramp, it's kind of bad. I mean, it's good for the person who's doing it. So now he's going to kind of rip you to shreds. Even though you've made exactly as much army as him, he made a better composition of units. You just went Marine tank with a few medevacs, whereas you went heavy Marine, heavy medevac. And heavy medevac is never good in fights. Um, in most matchups, I mean, in TVP, before they have feedback and Psystorm and Colossus, heavy medevac can work pretty good. Especially heavy medevac marine, like if you can make 4 medevacs and push out before 10 minutes. It's not something that I ever do because there's a much better way to win TVP, but if you do that, it can be crazy strong. Just because Protoss is all about low damage, high health, and medevacs give you almost infinite health, as long as his damage stays low enough. But against Marines are super high DPS. So you can't use medevacs. You can't unload near a Marine. The healing that a medevac does is almost immediately negated by the fact that everything he shoots at instantly dies. So just medevacs are great in TVT, but 2 medevacs is great. 4 medevacs, not so great. 5, 6 medevacs is like really silly. So when you go heavy infantry with medevacs and upgrades, you want to emphasize the infantry. You want to have like 5 racks with all reactor cores constantly pumping Marines and get as many minerals as you can out of the ground and turn them all into Marines. And just, you want to have a bigger army than him. And you want to make sure you catch him as he's pushing out of his base way over here, because your infantry is fast and his tank push is slow. So it gives you map control to have the faster army. What I mean by that is, especially when you have Marauders, he can't retreat. So even though his units actually walk around the same speed as your units, once you stim and charge in, if he tries to retreat with a Marine tank army, all of the tanks are instantly going to die. So that makes him have to be a lot more timid and have to not really want to cross the field until he's really ready to push. Whereas you can cross the field, if he catches you unawares and engages you as you're right here, you can just run away because his tanks can't pursue you. So even though his Marines are the same speed as your Marines, that same speed, that means they don't do any damage while you run away. I mean, and then he's getting further and further from his tank line if he does try to chase you. So you have map control when you go infantry, so use it. Infantry requires map control the same way that Ling Baneling requires map control. If you can retreat and he can't, get out there and control the map. And you kept doing carpet bombs on top of his tanks, but he's going Marine tank. He's not just going pure tank. So carpet bombing is not going to work. You never carpet bomb into Marines. Marines DPS is just way too hefty for that kind of stuff. Look at how much you've spent at this point than him. You just crushed him on economy. You had much better macro than him. Crushed him on economy, and you just really kind of wish that you'd caught him midfield or that you'd had siege tanks. One or the other. I mean, you can only sit back and defend if you have your own tanks to prevent him from tank pushing into you. But I think that actually you're better off in this case, in this build style, not getting the tanks and just catching him as he crosses somewhere in the wide open where you can get a huge arc and just surround him and stim in and crush him. So getting caught here is like worst case because you can't push through this gap. Anytime you push through a choke into area of effect, you lose. So if anything, you want to catch him here so that you spread your guys here, and as he comes up, you just push into the choke and crush him, then push back and push in and crush him and push back and push him and crush him, and he can never get past this point. And that's much better. You always want to be defending a ramp, especially if you can defend a ramp from far enough back that his siege tanks can't reach you. That's cool. Or, I mean, even better would be to defend his own ramp right here and just say, haha, you can't get to my base. So yeah, the early harass really crippled you, and then the positioning of your army was not viable with the Marine medevac composition.